welcome everybody to Reality Change with Kris. My name is John Hawkins, and I'm here with my friend Serge.
Hey John, this is our first for 2015.
Our first show for 2015. How wonderful. And we've had a bit of a break, but we're back. And I normally take a minute or two and talk about what we've talked about before, but that was last year.
Yeah.
Like what?
It's old school now.
Now, what I do recall, though, is that Kris talked quite a bit over a couple of sessions about this upcoming workshop, seminar called Life in the Key of Compassion, which he has described as being a way for us to release our unnecessary baggage permanently. So I'm quite looking forward to that, and it starts on Monday night.
This Monday.
This Monday night, yeah.
Wow.
So, Life in the Key of Compassion. But I really liked his subtitle, Source Alignment Therapy. This is where we align our desires all up with Source's desires, and then we're congruent. So, what do you think Kris has to say about all this?
I just started getting some streams coming in. So.
Just getting a little bit of...
Yeah. There's actually... my interpretation of that, visually, would be that there's 2 or 3 different cables being plugged in.
Well, we only need one.
Take that, Rogers.
We only need one. Yes, actually, he described it very nicely last time. He said, these are different channels that Serge could be attracted to, and in turn, he could then attract out of them certain streams of information. So it ends up being almost a two-way thing.
Now we trust that you are comfortable.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Kris.
And that also goes for Michael. Now, consider the possibility that you might be going trout fishing.
All right.
With friends, a beautiful early morning, finding beautiful streams, and you latch on your little flies and you cast them. Traditional trout fishing, of course, no fire crackings.
Right, right.
Fly fishing. And perhaps you are in your waders, waist deep, looking for the perfect bite. After a while, you may go to the next stream over, and the next stream over, because each of them may actually provide with different types of trouts. A trout is a trout, but they may all have slight differences.
Some might be bigger.
Indeed. So in a similar manner, in this kind of experience, Joseph goes fly fishing. And in his psychological waders, he is casting his little fly lines, waiting for a bite, so to speak. And he may be casting his line in different streams, all very close to each other, flowing in different directions, with different kinds of trout.
Mm-hmm.
Does that give you an illustration?
Yes, it does. So what's today's catch?
Indeed, the catch of the day. So, we have several different platters to bring about. One has to do with a dream experience of Joseph's from a few years back already. And it involves the one where he goes into this large southern style, plantation style mansion.
I remember
You
that.
remember that?
Yes, I do.
Indeed. Where there are all types of people milling about. And then somehow or other he sees through the window in the backyard what he believes to be a rather gruesome scene of someone being lynched by a mob, someone being beaten, or this kind of experience or that kind of experience. There are other experiences and events occurring that he did not see.
Oh.
Because remember, a dream can be very panoramic, but you can only take in so much at any given time.
Right.
So, various insights have been offered, especially in terms of aspects. That the individuals in the room would go into the backyard and use projected energy to describe the events that have occurred in some of their quote-unquote other lives.
Right. Some of them quite horrific.
Indeed, very difficult to deal with, but nonetheless, most educational, especially in the sense of projection. How the desire for certain experience and choosing certain paths propels you into the manifestation of events and circumstances and conditions that are all manufactured and created by your own energies stemming from your desire. So that is one particular layer of insight, but there is more going on. Now, of course, what is occurring in the backyard, the projections that are dramatized, literally represents some things occurring in the background.
Oh, all right. Backyard, background.
Indeed. That is why it is occurring back there and
Right.
not in the main meeting hall,
Right.
where the various individuals, be they male, female, be they white, black, red, blue, yellow, and so on and so forth. So all of these aspects have their particular experiences that they are projecting, and this represents the background of certain lifetimes. So that is one layer of insightfulness. We do not necessarily want to use the word interpretation, because it is not quite an interpretation here. But there is something else occurring at another layer entirely. And the dream itself represents a major key in understanding how things work from framework 2 and framework 3. So very nicely elaborated upon by Uncle Seth.
Yes.
So it is this. Souls choose from a great array or spectrum. These words do not necessarily clearly convey the varieties of experiences that can be tapped into, transferred, if you like, transformed into three-dimensional experiences. And they are all encapsulated in particular units of moments that the soul then decides whether they will activate this one or that one, or this other one here, or that one over there, because they may perceive that these particularly encapsulated moments or potential experiences have the potential, has the possibility of assisting them understanding how they are using their energy to create it.
Oh.
So these are all seeds of moments. And by accepting them, choosing them, then they give those seeds all the necessary nutrients to create the experiences that will then ensue in level 1, physical reality. And these come from deeper inside reality, for lack of better words. Do you follow?
I think so. Yes, I think so. You said something that just caused me to have a question. And you said the soul does such and so, picks certain moments or seed moments in order to help it to understand something.
Indeed.
Now that changes my understanding of soul a little bit. I thought a soul understood everything.
In one way, yes. In another way, it is about learning how to use those creative energies of consciousness to actually manifest a very specific, highly focused, tremendously concentrated set of actions. So the actions do not begin when you think they begin. They may have begun a long time, in your terms, in a completely different set of realities, deep within layers and layers of frameworks upon which entire reality systems are based upon. So you have, just like a house, you have a foundation. And on the foundation you build the bones of the house. You build the walls, the beams, the structures that then support the various floors and the roof and everything in it.
Right.
So there is a base reality that gives the foundation for everything else to be built upon. And again, all of that is, how do we say, the very foundation of that occurs within those deep, deep layers that you might be unaware of unless you begin to explore the inner dimensions. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, for sure. So that foundation, a particular house gets built on it, but according to the choices made down here, it could be a different house, or it could be a swimming pool. I mean, what we build on that foundation. And the thing that intrigues me about this is that a soul may have an experience over here, or half an experience there, or share an experience with someone there, and that creates a kind of a little question, or a little sort of, an intriguing little possibility, and then soul chooses the necessary elements in order to bring that to full bloom and have a darn good look at it. Is that?
The one thing that the soul is always on the lookout for is ideas that it can latch onto and develop. Develop to its own liking.
And for its own development, for better word.
Indeed, for its own edification.
Right.
It needs to know and understand the values and the benefits and the fulfillment involved in taking a basic concept that exists in neither time nor space and supplant it in and within the context of time and space. Your ideas and concepts, they are non-physical.
Right.
but you turn them into physical realities.
It's a neat trick, really.
That is the magic of consciousness.
Right. I mean, at the simplest level, a potter thinks of a pot, gets a piece of clay, and whoop, manifests the pot.
But first and foremost, he has a vision as to how that clay may desire to be transformed, more or less. So he becomes one with his potter's wheel and with his clay, and allows his inspiration to manifest itself through his fingers.
And through the clay.
And through the clay, and through all the mechanisms involved.
Which may surprise the soul along the way, and this is where we get the edification, and say, oh, well, I hadn't really thought of that, but that's great, and it changes things.
And to add some spice to this beautiful recipe, there are no creations that are necessarily good nor bad in that sense. From the perspective of the soul, a creation is a creation. Everything else comes from the value judgments that are attached to the human ego. Whether it is a clay pot or something else entirely. Electricity, for example, is neither good nor bad. How you use it determines your particular interpretation. You can misuse it and burn yourself. You can utilize it to create heat and light and cold.
But isn't misusing it and burning yourself bad?
In your physical terms, yes. But in other terms, in terms of the soul's understanding, it is not. It simply is. It is observed without judgment. The soul neither feels good nor bad about anything in that sense of the word. But the soul is always excited to create. Now, some may say, well, does that make then the soul somewhat inhuman? But it does not. The soul does not necessarily get completely swallowed up in all of the negativity that is familiar to the world of dualities and duplicities. That is from the level of the ego.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, even something which would seem at the surface level obviously a bad thing, which is having a sickness, a serious life-threatening sickness, clearly a bad thing at this level. However, I know many people who've had, survived cancer or what have you, car accidents, and again and again and again, they'll say, once they've sort of composed themselves and maybe a few years have gone by, they say, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And that is understandable. They put themselves in a situation to transform the paradigms they had lived with for so long, which have, like your duvet cover story, outlived its usefulness. So they needed to reboot their system, if you like.
Right.
So they often come out of such experiences with a completely different outlook. People they may have even detested in the past, suddenly there is no such feeling. There might even be compassion for all. Now, there is yet again a different layer underneath the layer that is involved in the dream. And that is that you all beings have their existence in an atmosphere of deep grace filled with choice. So the individual souls choose what they believe they can cope with at any given particular time. And they may even select some sets of actions and the unfolding of events that may take several lifetimes to go through. They may want to paint a complete picture, not just one corner of the canvas, but aim for a complete, full picture of an event that may take many lifetimes to flow through. So that they can paint the entire canvas of the experience.
By living it through.
Indeed. So this may require several different lifetimes. And they may choose then to disperse their own energies, sometimes with another soul, to add to the atmosphere, to add to the challenge, to add to the togetherness.
Disperse energy, what does that mean?
So that they can engage another soul that may have similar desires, each viewed from a different perspective.
So they might play a different role in the scenario.
They might be representing different aspects at that particular time. So that in itself is interesting because one character, one personality may be infused with the energy and the consciousness of two different souls.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Indeed, the concept is not unfamiliar.
No.
But it may warrant a deeper, not necessarily sophisticated, but balanced understanding.
Well, just a quick comment on that is that Elias, who you're familiar with, has talked about that. And what does he call them? Observing essences, right? So you've got the one essence that's sort of, let's say, driving the bus, so to speak, of the physical ego. And then you have observing essences. But the thing he said that I thought was fascinating was that the ego, the conscious focal ego, has the ability to choose which of the souls that are associated is going to be prime. Isn't that interesting?
That is. Especially the focused personality, that is considered the ego personality, is not limited to choosing one or the other.
Oh.
But it may take the point of view of either at any given time, especially if it feels that it is up against a brick wall and the wolves are at the heels.
Oh, so it just changes perspective at that point.
So it may require an additional influx of insight and energy to turn the situation around.
Well, that sounds very friendly and cooperative.
And there are always cooperation. Your universe, as you understand it, is based upon cooperation. Your natural world, as you think you understand it, is based on cooperation and not the Darwinian sense of natural selection of the fittest.
Right, survival of the fittest.
The one who can adapt the most.
And who can cooperate the most. With
adaptation
with
comes
changes.
along that line.
Right. Okay, we're back, folks. We actually had a little technical glitch there, but we decided to just take our break and get all the batteries and what have you sorted out, and we're back. So, as usual, we want to talk just a little bit about coming events and all that's exciting in Krisland. Is that okay, Krisland?
Yeah.
We will have, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, there is a very, very interesting new seminar starting Monday night, this coming Monday night. That would be the 19th
Yep.
of January, and it is going to be fabulous. It's called Life in the Key of Compassion. There's a subtitle, but then there's another subtitle that I really like called Source Alignment Therapy. And Kris talked about how he was going to give us material in that series. It'll be a series of probably 8 evenings that will help us release all of our unnecessary baggage and blockages permanently. And there's actually another program which Kris is offering called the Zen of Channeling, and it's also going to be a Skype,
Yep.
a
Both of them
Skype workshop. And it starts on February the 3rd, which is a Tuesday. It's called the Zen of Channeling, and it's all about how to learn how to channel. Isn't that right?
That's its main goal, is to help people open up and learn how to allow these kind of communications to happen. There's already a few people signed up, and that should be very interesting.
Now, is that something that anybody could say, oh, you know, okay, I'm interested, or do you have to have a certain, like what?
Well, I know that Kris wants to talk to everybody who signs up individually for 20, 30 minutes.
Just to make sure that...
Just to, yeah. It's been a long time, at least 12 years since we've offered that kind of a workshop.
Right.
I think the last time was in 2002, 2003, or something like that. And it was also very interesting. Not everybody, excuse me, pursues, you know, what they learned and how to do it, but some people are just interested in knowing how it works for themselves.
Oh.
I think everybody has the potential. Like everybody has the potential to go to higher education of some kind. Some people may choose not to. Some people may go and not pursue it. Some people may follow up and so on and so forth.
Right. So it's an option. It's not necessary.
Yeah. I always find it interesting, especially for that, when somebody wants to explore the potential of doing something like that, because everybody has their own unique point of view. And it may happen that somebody is more proficient at automatic writing kind of thing, you know, writing down information as opposed to speaking.
Still channeling.
Yeah, yeah. And other people may just be very clairaudient in a certain way, where they kind of internally hear information.
Oh.
And then they'll give it to whomever it's pertinent. We're not dealing with the classic mediumship kind of thing. This is strictly for channeling. You know.
Okay, well, anyway, that starts on February 3rd. And all of this information, by the way, is on the Lotus-Mind website,
Yep.
lotus-mind.ca. And incidentally, the private sessions with Kris are still on sale at a dramatic discount.
Yeah.
$150 for 2 sessions.
Yep.
And from what I understand, you're welcome to buy 2 sessions and, you know, like basically split it with a friend.
Yep.
So you get one and your friend gets one.
That's been done already.
Right.
2 people would split, or one person buys one for themselves and shares it with a friend or relative as a gift for the other.
Right. So an hour with Kris for $75. Darn good deal.
Yep.
The other thing to just note in closing this section of the program is that the Dream Book is still on sale for shipping.
Yep. Just pay the cost of shipping. It's described there. I think for Canada it's $13 anywhere, and for overseas it's $18
Right.
or something like that. So that's there.
Now, in a sense, not so good news is that Origo Books, who has been a pretty good location for us, is gone.
Yep, they folded. They're no longer here, which is a shame in a way. It was a very.
It was
I
an
enjoyed
interesting
it.
group.
I liked the place. I liked the people. I liked
Yeah.
the groups that showed up there. But it's no more. So something else will surely come down the pipes.
Yeah, in the meantime, you know, is there a way that we can reach out to the people who attended at Origo so that, you know, they're aware that they can continue their, you know, association with Kris, even though the bookstore is gone? I think that's worth looking into.
We'll see.
Okay. Anyway, that's for us to sort out.
Yep.
Well, before the break, Kris was talking about something very, very interesting. And that is the idea that, well, first of all, he talked about at least 3 different layers of interpretation, not interpretation, understanding from that dream that you had about the plantation and the crazy stuff going in the backyard and everybody saying, oh, you remember that, right? And, but we segued from there into the idea of there can be more than one soul associated with a particular focal personality, which I find to be a very interesting idea.
The enchantment in all of this can be summed up this way. Not only does one particular personality have various aspects,
Right.
but that each aspect is also its own individual soul. So you have group travel, if you like, but the others acting as aspects for the one. But it is a full-blown venture, because you may consider yourself as the man-focused personality with all these various aspects. But for another, you may be part of the aspects for the one focused personality.
So just so that I understand, every aspect is a full-blown soul.
Indeed. Taking on the role of aspect or inner companion.
Mind blown.
You are multi-dimensional beings. You are Gestalt, meaning that you are more than the sum of all of your parts.
So the question of an individual soul being in some weird possibility, in some weird way, as being independent somehow, and somehow
Your ideas of individuality, of standaloneness, stand-apartness, your ideas of being unique, sounds very nice. But you are not as separate from others as you may like to think. You all travel together. You create your experiences of reality, but it is a joint venture.
So each aspect creates their experiences of reality.
Indeed. The main focus sorts all of this out very nicely for you.
Okay, help me with main focus as opposed to a soul.
So you could say mini oversoul. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, but there's too many layers here.
You are always layered. Always. You do not see how the various petals open and close of the beautiful flower of your being. Consider the diamond.
Okay.
Multifaceted diamond. It is still one diamond, but its diamond nature is dependent on all the facets. That's what gives it that beautiful quality. Not just its clarity, its size, its facets give it that unique quality.
Mm. Is this what Seth means by a pyramid gestalt? Do you know what I'm saying there?
Indeed.
In other words, he's saying that there's a pyramid gestalt, and I always sort of thought of that as a very advanced personality. But what I'm getting now is that that is a vast community of personalities.
And make no mistake about it. How many points or tips do you think a pyramid has?
Well, it's got the one pointing up, and then depending, it's got at least 3 or 4 more.
It should have underneath as well.
Okay, that way. How many tips does a pyramid have?
Many.
Many. All right, I get it.
So let us simply say that you are a very complex structure.
Do I have to understand this?
You do not. If you had to consciously work through all of this, you would not get out of the room. So look at it in this particular way. You have a house.
Mm.
The house may be a bungalow. It may be 2 stories or 3 stories or 4 stories. It has windows. It has doors.
Mm.
2, 4, 8 doors. 10, 12, 20 windows. Depending on which window you happen to look out of, you get a different view
Of whatever, yeah.
of the outside.
Right.
So think of it this way. Each unique aspect gives you a beautiful window of perception onto the world. But it is still part of the house.
So let's say I have an aspect that perhaps had another life, whatever. And that I'm realizing now, because you told me, that there's a soul involved there. It's not just a projection of me. There's a whole soul there.
Indeed.
So when that aspect, let's say, gives me a sore knee, in order to draw my attention to some issue that it wants resolved because it's an aspect of me and I want it resolved too, who's being resolved here? Am I? Anyway, I'm going to have to let that idea.
Indeed. And the terminology used is perhaps not as clear-cut as you think.
Oh.
It is not necessarily that an aspect will give you a sore knee.
Right.
But it is an issue that you need to work on or to resolve.
Right.
So, you are calling upon, in your terms, your subconscious, even though there is no such a thing.
Right.
But you are calling upon the realization that there is a blockage. There is a lack of flow.
Right.
And it represents itself in that way. It manifests itself as your sore knee, your sore elbow, pain in the neck, pain in the back.
So I'm putting out a call saying, let's clear this up. And the aspect very kindly says, okay, bzzzt, that will get your attention.
Because you are seeking cooperation.
Right. Why couldn't I just get myself a sore knee?
You sometimes do.
Well, that's
It
true.
is not always somebody else's fault. In fact, it is never somebody else's fault. But what is beautiful is that you have a cooperative venture. Everyone cooperates together in some way. No one deliberately, and no one particular aspect deliberately puts a stick in the wheel.
So it's all cooperative, beneficial.
All work together to resolve the issue. In your terms, you are the one who has put the stick in the wheel. Is that the correct expression?
Yeah, put a stick in a wheel. It's like
Indeed.
riding a bicycle, and you put a stick in the wheel, and you're going to fall down.
Indeed. Classic comedy.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm the one who put the stick in the wheel. Okay. Well, yeah, I have to confess that there's some new perspectives that you're sharing today, or at least I'm suddenly realizing today. So that's very interesting. Let me ask you a question, if I may.
Indeed.
Was there anything that you wanted to get out with reference to the people preparing for Monday nights, the beginning of that session? I just want to create an opportunity for that.
In fact, the information we have just shared now can be pondered, considered, reflected upon, because it may become part of the information, giving you access to how every single / individual aspect of your persona has the best interest of the community at heart. You are a community.
Let me ask you a question on that. Why don't I have the best aspects? What did you say? In other words,
Best interest of the community.
Why is it that I, except only recently, have not had the best interests of the community at heart? In my perspective.
The information that you have accepted as truth, even from a very early age, those particular belief structures that you have relied upon. Think back to the duvet issue.
Oh, right, sure. Were originally very nice, but eventually degraded.
Indeed. So now you can come to the realization that you are no longer alone, struggling with the universe. You have an entire community within you to support you, to nurture you.
That's a very happy way to think of it.
Indeed. All these various aspects, you included, yourself included as an aspect. You travel through time and space, seeking the development of your own potentials in terms of consciousness. This does not deny your individuality, your uniqueness, but it reaffirms your oneness with self.
Now, by self, I know this from reading some transcendental literature. The self really can either have a small s or a large s.
In that sense, normally the small s refers to the part of the self that is at that moment looking out and interacting through the window.
A particular window,
Indeed.
Yes.
But the capital S may refer to the whole house, all the windows together, and all the individual personalities looking out their individual windows, each adding to the complex picture of reality creation.
And then,
because you share that knowledge.
with all the aspects.
Indeed.
And then there's the self, which is all caps, which is all the houses.
Very likely the whole village.
The whole village. The whole. Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm gonna, this is interesting, very interesting.
So Joseph's original dream along those lines happened many years ago. But a particular amount of time was required to allow it to percolate, if you like. The dream needed to be understood, but in different ways. Now, a more complete, bigger picture has been provided, which should also tell you something about the nature of that very self, say, all caps self. It represents itself, forgive the pun, but through the individual aspects or focused personalities, those foci.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
You have fingertips.
I do.
You want to know the world through touch.
You touch things.
Yeah, so it becomes an extension of your perceptive mechanisms. And similarly, all the various selves are like the fingertips in a way. Not that they are pushed around by the big brother self or a bully self. Such a thing does not exist. But you have an entire network at your beck and call, at your fingertips, so to speak,
Right.
upon which you can call. And it is faster than dialing 911.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, because in my aspect work that I've been doing for years now, I've always thought of the aspects of being as being, you know,
Perhaps pseudo-personalities, half-baked ideas of one's own self.
yes, somehow, in other words, they're not me, but they're an aspect of me, right? Well, now I'm getting that they're not me, they're an aspect of me, but in the same way, from their perspective, it's not them, I'm an aspect of them. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to do a little pondering around that, I think.
The soup should be tasty indeed. Consider that this is, the whole universe is an incredible tapestry. All of the threads brought together, stitched, interwoven to create this universe, filled with consciousness, filled with the desire to know itself in every which way. You often look at the world and you think through your eyes that there are living sentient things and there are things that are not sentient. Perhaps mountains, rivers, they are non-living, so-called.
Right.
They are also filled with consciousness, but they do not act the way you expect consciousness to act. You look at the stars and you think that this is a beautiful tapestry, but it is lifeless. But you do not see the life that exists there. You do not think for a moment that what you see as little stars, little bits of glitter upon that velvety firmament,
Right.
is actually an immense living entity. You do not understand that.
Filled with uncounted other living
Indeed.
entities.
It represents itself in that way.
Well, you know, I'm really happy that I have commenced my education.
Indeed. So consider this as simply an stage 3 of understanding about aspects and aspect therapy.
Stage 3. Is there a stage 4?
We will not go there yet.
Okay.
Basically, everything in your world is an extension of that community self that you are.
Now that is nicely put.
So that can be considered part of stage 4 education.
Everything is, you see, I was struggling with the idea that it was an extension of me, but it's not. It's an extension of the community which I am a part of.
Yes.
That's really
So
much better.
in terms of the ego construction that you are familiar with and that you have known yourself to be for so many years, that understanding is suitable. That it is an extension of you.
Right.
But now when the concept of you changes, then everything else changes.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Indeed. Therefore, now everything else is an extension of the community that you are.
Right. Right. The dog agrees.
See? It is self-evident.
Yes, self-evident. Okay, well, Kris, I think we're probably coming up on our time here. Wow, I must say. Wow and wow again. If this is a teaser for Monday night, fasten your seatbelts, folks.
Indeed, then we will leave you to ponder a great many different things.
Yes.
And with that, we thank you for your consideration. And simply know that as your own participation in a great community of self, you are never bereft of help or assistance. It is never cut off from you. You may cut yourself off from it. In other words, you are a living representation of the universe. It is said that in Sanskrit, Akila means all that is. But what is Akila? How can Akila be without you and without him and without the others?
Well, if it's all that is, then it's all of that and more.
And you are all of that too. So with that, we will leave before you blow your fuse.
Thank you very much.
And we thank you for your consideration. And we return Joseph to you now.
Thank you, Kris. Well, folks, I hope everybody got as much out of that as I think I got. We're going to do this again real soon. And meanwhile, what he said.
Not me.